All right, we're live. Welcome, everyone. This is an absolute pleasure to host the March 2026 community call again. The last 4 weeks have been super busy. We've been working really hard on the Bank of Bitcoin vision, delivering on our roadmap, and pushing out a lot of updates on the marketing side, on the business side, on the development side, on the engineering side. And there's a lot of interesting stuff that we want to share in this call. As always, I have Alexei, Bob co-founder, to share all of the interesting updates, alpha. If this is your first time joining in for the community call, this is something that we do every 4 weeks. We've been super regular with the cadence, and we also collect community questions before every call. You can check it out in the Discord. We make announcements to notify if you're ever interested in asking questions to Alexa directly. We're always super active on Discord, but otherwise, if you want to get featured on the community call, you're always welcome. With that being said, let's start the call. Alexei, over to you.
Hey, we're sure we're live on Twitter. I'm not sure. I don't see it yet. Just double checking.
Yeah, we're live. There's usually like a delay between
cool.
the.
Sounds good. All right, so thanks everyone for joining in. We, as promised, will be doing these calls much more regularly. So once a month, you'll get a full download of what's going on with Bob behind the scenes, what's the progress, what's what we're working on, what are the new features, and anything else that's relevant. You will also be receiving a monthly newsletter. If you have not signed up, definitely do. You can find the sign up link on the Bob website. So without further ado, let's dive in. So we'll cover today the latest milestones. We'll also talk more about the evolution of Bitcoin Intense and Bob Gateway, give a quick reminder of why that's relevant, how this fits into the Bank of Bitcoin vision, and share the latest updates and progress of how we're building essentially the best Bitcoin swaps engine on the market, and cover some other things that are coming up. And at the end, we'll cover some questions from the community. So in terms of latest milestones, one cool thing that took much longer than anticipated, but we're happy to that it's finally done. Bob is now live in MetaMask, so you can automatically detect the Bob network when you connect your MetaMask wallet, and will automatically also filter the tokens that you have on Bob. This makes it much easier to use DeFi and basically interact with the Bob chain going forward. So small but very important update for UX. I've been working close with the MetaMask team on a few other things, and this has been the first big step to kind of accelerate the collaboration. The Jovian hard fork upgrade went live. This is an upgrade to the OP stack, and essentially it addressed a few improvements to the fault proofs. It improved how fees are being handled on chain, and it added some more data availability stuff. Nothing that you as a user really should care about. The most important thing is it's easier for apps to, and essentially wallets, to predict and calculate fees on the chain, and mainly a backend infrastructure upgrades. There was some minimal temporary disruption on the bridge that has been now resolved because the upgrade has been completed successfully. So everything is working as planned and normal. And now to the more interesting parts from the lab. We have been very busy on the engineering side. I mean, some stats, if they're relevant. We have merged 234 PRs. There's been quite a lot of work on the front-end side, and a lot of work has been going into the SDK itself. Some major updates here. So we have released an in-house, for now, but in-house prototype for fixed-rate instant Bitcoin swaps. I'll talk about this a bit more towards the end of the call. We already teased it last time, and now we have an internal prototype. We've also been sharing it with partners and getting early feedback, and we should be getting a private demo out in the next couple of weeks. So you'll be able to sign up and to be notified about the latest updates there. This is a really cool feature, so we'll have an entire section of the presentation dedicated to this today. Another very big upgrade that's going on right now to Gateway is a major quote optimization. So we've been digging into the depths of the routing system, and by end of next week, Bob will be the best product on the market for Bitcoin to USDT and USDC swaps. And essentially, by a margin, actually, on some routes. So we've made some major updates there. Very excited about this. So far, Bob has been the best on wrap BTC. Now we're going to be the best on the stablecoin swaps as well. And there's a lot of ongoing R&D into product features and improvements. One of them is naturally processing large order sizes with $1 million plus, limit orders, DCA, and compliant privacy. So there's quite a lot of work going on in the background. The product team is very heavily investing time into exploring what else we can build and what's really necessary in the market right now. On the app, we have improved the tracking for orders, so that makes it much easier, especially also in the API level, to look up orders based on the Bitcoin or EVM TX hash. This is some feedback we had from API integration partners. And we have added QR code payments. As you may know already from last time, Bob Gateway supports direct deposits from centralized exchanges. And now on the app, you no longer need to connect your Bitcoin wallet. You can basically just scan the QR code from any Bitcoin wallet, a centralized exchange, whatever, and send Bitcoin without having to use a browser wallet. So this is essentially improved support for non-browser Bitcoin wallets. On the SDK and API side, this is more for developers and integration partners. We have added cross-chain actions. So now it's much easier for you to swap to a target chain and then trigger a cross-chain interaction. So for example, you could swap Bitcoin for USDC and then basically directly supply into Aave, or you could do more advanced DeFi strategies, multi-hub routes. You can also optimize your own routing logic if you want to. You can use our engine, or if you want to optimize for your use case, or you want to use some exotic assets, right, that we perhaps don't yet support, you can easily do this now and customize it to your use case. This also allows us to do more advanced things like limit orders and DCAs across all the 11 supported chains on the network. There's been some big upgrades to the SDK, and there's major improvements to the API, which I won't go into detail here. And we have another audit ongoing right now. Once the audit is completed, we will then be able to work with the solvers and scale up capacity significantly to allow for much larger order sizes. So I've talked quite a bit about Gateway here, but as a reminder, like why Gateway? What does that mean, and how does this fit into the Bank of Bitcoin vision? At Bob, our mission is to build the Bank of Bitcoin. We see this as a $6 trillion market opportunity, essentially offering the same products your traditional or neobank offers to you, but on Bitcoin rails. And especially in today's geopolitical situation, Bitcoin is becoming more and more important as a neutral global asset. The platform we're building will allow you to swap your Bitcoin, save on it, deploy it into more advanced DeFi or yield strategies, and of course, use it as collateral. And the whole goal here is to make these things non-custodial. So you can keep your Bitcoin in your own wallet, in your favorite custodian. You never have to trust anyone else than the protocol you're using. And that's mostly smart contract risk. So no centralized exchanges, no centralized providers. And the first stage that we've been focused on is focusing on trading. So not just secure on-off ramping into the system, but specifically revolutionizing Bitcoin swaps and building the most competitive Bitcoin swap engine. So this is all based on Bitcoin Intents. For those of you who are not familiar, Intents essentially intents are glorified atomic swaps, if you're simplified and kind of consider this from a very simple perspective. What you do as a user is you say, hey, I have Bitcoin. I want to do something with it. I want to trade it for stable coins, or I want to trade it for Solana on the Solana chain, or I want to deploy it into DeFi. Whatever it is you want, you specify your intent, post a quote, and then solvers will compete to execute this at the best possible price. The more solvers in the system, the more capacity, and the better quotes you get. That's the idea. So you essentially have traditional market makers competing to fulfill your order. And this is quite similar how centralized exchanges work, with a difference that this is actually non-custodial. So on Binance, you have to deposit, you have to keep your assets there, you lose custody, and then you trade on the platform. With Intents, you can do the same thing in a non-custodial manner. Intents has become the most prominent cross-chain swap method on EVM chains, with the exception of burn bridges like Circle CCTP, where obviously Circle basically controls the full accounting. But in all other cases, Intents are becoming more competitive and powerful than liquidity, or other bridge designs. We built the first Bitcoin intent system actually ever back in September 2024, so very, very early. And we initially used it for one use case, and that was one-click Bitcoin DeFi, right? So we wanted to allow people to one-click deploy Bitcoin into DeFi use cases. You could do that on the Bob Earn app. It's still live, although the strategies have been reduced to only 2 right now. And this has been used by over 30,000 users with 100 Bitcoin bridged at the time. And essentially in December 2025, we doubled down and we started expanding this to swaps. So we saw that intents work really, really well. And the goal was to then build the most competitive Bitcoin trading engine on top of that. The way it works is very simple, right? Just to remind everybody how it works. I will go to the platform, for example, on the Bob Swap app, if under app.gobob.xyz, I'll basically specify what I want to trade. So Bitcoin for, let's say, USDT on Ethereum. I'll post a request for a quote. Solvers will compute, respond, and if I accept it and sign the transaction, send the Bitcoin, then essentially, once the Bitcoin is arrived at the solver, I will receive the destination asset, let's say USDT on Ethereum, and I can do whatever I want. Under the hood, the way it works is that the solvers will lock up any asset that they support. So it could be RapidEC, could be directly USDT, depending on whatever routing asset they use. And then once the Bitcoin has arrived at the solver account, our system will verify it using live client proofs. So Bob smart contracts become aware of the Bitcoin transaction and they trigger the unlock release of the funds, and then we complete the remaining steps. So if the solver quoted in RapidEC, then we will trigger a RapidEC to USDT swap, and the user will get USDT. If the solver quoted directly in USDT, then the funds are directly released to the user. So you can do a lot of advanced things once the Bitcoin transaction has settled. And the cool thing about this is non-custodial, and in fact, it currently does not require KYC, although the system does implement specifically on the solver level compliance checks. And from what we know, the solvers they're working with, and that's actually something we're trying to enforce, are very strict on preventing any fraudulent activity and working with the best in-class tools for compliance. So as opposed to some competitors in the market that have seen illicit funds move through their system and have hence been banned from wallets, Bob Gateway is taking a very serious approach against crime and very carefully following funds and making sure that no illicit funds are processed through the swap engine. Now, moving on to why do we actually do this, and some interesting insights on the market. So one of the cool insights is that everybody wants Bitcoin to stablecoin swaps. So far, Bob has been the most competitive of Bitcoin to RapidEC, and then you could go on and swap yourself. The feedback we've received is and the market data that we see is everybody wants stables, whether it's USDT on Ethereum, USDC on Solana, USDC on Base, USDT on Tron, doesn't matter. Stablecoins, Bitcoin to stablecoins is essentially the most important pair in the market, and the data clearly speaks for itself, which is, as already mentioned and repeating again, which is why we have been very focused on improving stablecoin routing. And as of 2 weeks, actually less, 1.5 to 2 weeks from now, Bob will have the best quotes for Bitcoin to stablecoin pairs on the markets, offering the best execution. And last but not least, there are 2 more interesting things that we're working on Bob Gateway. This is something that I've already teased last week. And this kind of goes hand in hand with essentially offering the best execution on the market. As already mentioned, Bob has been working on instant fixed rate swaps. What does this mean? The problem that Bitcoin has is right now you have 10 to sometimes even 60-minute delays when you send your Bitcoin until it actually arrives and is processed on the swap by the swap provider. So you actually get your stable coins with a 10 to 60-minute delay. This does mean in a volatile market, and that's when most people trade, your quotes either expire or they're much worse. They could, of course, be better, but very rarely the solvers will give you a better price. Usually what happens is the solver gives you an expected price, and it can go worse. It will never go better. Solvers just don't give you more, right? They'll keep it for themselves if they can make a profit. So, for example, if Bitcoin price goes down, you actually get a much worse USDT quote. So this does not work for day trading. It doesn't work for arbitrage. It's not really competitive against centralized exchanges yet. And that, of course, is a problem and something that we have worked for a bit to fix, and we actually have a solution. So, and I won't leak how exactly it works just yet. We'll be posting a full write-up and a demo soon. But what we have achieved is, on one hand, predictability. You get fixed rate execution with lower slippage. So when you see the quote, and if you see Bitcoin to USDT at, let's say, $10,000 for whatever, or like if the Bitcoin price that we are able to, that the solvers quote you is, let's say, $70,000, you're going to get exactly that within a few seconds. And that's a huge improvement, and essentially allows us to offer much better execution and much better quotes than any competitor in the market. So that's number one, predictability. Another observation, in fact, is that many competitors promise you much better rates than they can deliver. In fact, we've seen that some competitors in the market will lie to you and basically quote you 25 bips or more better, and you get 25 bips actually less. And it doesn't sound like a lot if you do one swap, but for power users, 25 bips makes a huge difference if you're trading millions of dollars. This is more than Binance charges you per trade, and that's the difference that actually some providers in the market, and I won't name names just yet, but we have a lot of interesting data that we'll be releasing soon to show how essentially unfair some of the Bitcoin swap providers are quoting users. And it's a quite sad state of the industry right now. So predictability, number one. And the other thing is speed. The cool thing about the design that we have is that you get your Bitcoin immediately. You get your stablecoins, whatever, immediately. So think of like some exchanges, right, will allow you to use your Bitcoin balance once you've sent the Bitcoin, even before it has arrived, right? So they observe the transaction, they see it's coming, and they will allow you to use the balance for trading. And this is exactly what Bobgate will allow you to do. Once you've sent the Bitcoin, your balance will become tradable, and you can start trading into other assets. You can start depositing into lending markets. You can start to use it in DeFi for certain things. So instead of waiting for 10 minutes or longer, you get immediate liquidity. So you can start using your BTC or whatever asset you're trading a Bitcoin in immediately, within seconds, instead of waiting for 10 to 60 minutes. And that's a major improvement for trading, for DeFi activities, for anything where you need to be fast. We'll share more how it works under the hood. It's a quite innovative system. And the most important part is it does not require Lightning. It does not need any other L2 solution. It does not require account setup. It works out of the box with any Bitcoin wallet, right? So you can send your Bitcoin from exchanges, from Ledger, from anywhere, from any of the hundreds of Bitcoin wallets that are in the market, and this will work, right? I know probably some of you are thinking, oh, this sounds like Lightning. I can say it's not Lightning Network. We don't require Lightning Wallet. This is a much more interesting and advanced solution. More soon. So yeah, as mentioned, we already have Instant Swap internal demo that we've been sharing with partners and battle testing ourselves. It's working really well. We're currently settling within 9 seconds. I think we can get this down to 3 seconds, probably, and even further. But there's already a huge difference, right? Instead of waiting 10 minutes to 60 minutes, we're currently at 9 seconds. So, and then last but not least, something more fun towards the end. We've obviously been paying attention to AI. We've been using it quite extensively in-house as well, especially for data analysis and looking at what the market is doing, which essentially helps a lot in understanding who is the best rate, who is quoting how much, who is actually honest on their quotes, who is lying. But one of the things we've also been looking at is, well, what do AI agents actually do? And we found a very interesting study, and in fact, this has been kind of reflecting what we've seen in the market. Apparently, agents prefer Bitcoin over stablecoins. And the Bitcoin Policy Institute tested 36 models with over 9,000 conversations, and by far, 48.3% of the AIs would choose Bitcoin to do trade swaps and basically use it as a balance. And the reason is Bitcoin is so easy to access. It has the most power users. It has global support, and stablecoin rails are there. But essentially, you're much better off starting from Bitcoin and then just swapping into stables or whatever you need. And it just seems to work much, much better, which is very exciting and quite interesting. And of course, what we've been hence doing is we've been making sure that Bob Gateway works well for AI agents. And in fact, we've already submitted a pull request to some of the top agent kits. So hopefully Bob Gateway will soon be the Bitcoin trading engine of choice for quite a few of the agents out there. And we've already been experimenting in-house with some tooling that, for example, would allow you to automatically generate Bitcoin yield and search for optimized Bitcoin yield strategies across different chains. So yeah, there's a lot of work happening there on the AI agent side. And well, with the best pricing and essentially supporting all the most important routes and chains and specialized essential integrations for AI agents, we're quite excited and hopeful to see Bob become the main engine for AI agents, essentially holding and doing things with BTC in DeFi. That's it for today for updates. We'll also send this out as a written email update, and going forward, these will be happening at the same time. And now happy to cover a few community questions that came up previously.
Yeah, happy to do the questions. So like I had mentioned before, we always collect community questions in our Discord. So if you want to get your questions featured in the next community call, be sure to check them out in the Discord channel. And if you don't know where to head, always feel free to ask me, tag me. I'm always active in the Discord or any of our moderators. So with that being said, let's go to the first question. This is something that you just talked about, but let's do it again. We're seeing a lot of talk about AI agents using Bitcoin. What makes an intent-based architecture better for an autonomous agent compared to traditional bridging? That's actually a good question.
That actually is a good question. The cool things, I mean, basically the cool things about intents is that it abstracts a lot of the complexity of bridging. Now, of course, what you could do is you could teach your AI agent to use these different bridges, be it layer 0, be it CCTP, be it whatever not, and do multi-hop routing and so on. But to be fair, it is complex, right? Bridging is still a very big problem. There's so many different providers. And if you want the best execution, you actually need to spend time on it. And that's what intent providers do. So that's what we do, for example, for Bitcoin is we look at what's the best way to get BTC into, let's say, USDT on Tron or USDC on Solana or ETH on Ethereum and provide you the best route and the best quotes. And then on top, basically, you have composability. So you could then easily, in these intent frameworks like Bob Gateway, provide you the ability to specify additional actions. So your AI agent can essentially say, well, look, I have Bitcoin and I want to invest it and deploy it into this DeFi strategy, but I want to automatically rebalance and then I want to move it around between different chains. And essentially, you can attach all these additional actions on top of the intent framework. So instead of your AI agent having to learn how to deal with CCTP, layer 0, all these other bridging technologies and staying up to date, you basically outsource this to the intent providers where you have professional solvers that they will handle the rebalancing, right? What happens in the background is the solvers will then look at what's the best way for them to rebalance, be it on centralized exchanges, be it in DeFi, and they basically optimize. And of course, they use the AI agents probably on their end to optimize these things. But you can just focus on your use case. You don't need to teach your AI agent how to do optimization of routing, right? You just get the best routes. I guess it's similar, the way I like to think about this is, when you go to an ATM, you just want to withdraw cash. You don't want to think about how is this ATM actually going to talk to my bank, and how are the funds going to be rebalanced? And that's the same thing. Intents just lets you say, hey, I want X, and you just get it. And you outsource this to other third parties. And of course, solvers today, more likely than not, are already using AI agents to optimize on their side.
That makes a lot of sense. So on to the next question. For developers building on Bob, what new tools or APIs are being released to help them integrate intent-based features into their own dApps?
So as mentioned, one of the cool things is that we have now added cross-chain composable actions. So Bob Gateway now allows you to compose things across different networks. So whether you're on Bob, on ETH, on Solana, doesn't matter. You can essentially send and receive Bitcoin from within your app. And the user doesn't have to click multiple times, right, to deposit Bitcoin and then do something. You can compose it into a single flow. So you can say send Bitcoin to bet on this pooling market, or you can say send Bitcoin to top up your BTC balance collateral balance on Aave, right? So you can really remove the amount of clicks the user has to do. And especially, especially with Bitcoin, where it takes 10 minutes or longer sometimes for this to be delivered. Very big improvement is that you just, fire and forget. You don't have to come back in 10 minutes and check, oh, is my transaction on Bitcoin done? And then I do something. So that's like one major improvement that you can do. And it's a very simple one, but it makes the life much easier for many app developers. And then another cool thing is we work with WeOwn, that's basically Wallet Connect, and have been working with them as a BDC partner and adding BDC wallet support. So if your app uses Wallet Connect, which many of them do, right, to basically handle wallet connections, you can now get Bitcoin support out of the box, right? And we're very happy to consult and help with the integration. But basically what we've been doing is to make sure, well, if you want to add Bitcoin wallet support to your app, you just plug in Wallet Connect. We've been working with them to add more Bitcoin wallet support. And of course, we'll also provide you the way for people to deposit and withdraw BTC from the app. So we provide the full package. And yeah, it's super easy to integrate. You don't need to think about a lot. And it makes it just much easier to accept direct BTC deposits and withdrawals. I think we lost Pankaj there, but I can read the last question while we have a connection breakdown. So the last question is about crypto cards. So crypto cards seem to be gaining traction as we're seeing interest from traditional fintechs or payment processors and or are we seeing interest from traditional fintechs or payment processors in using the gateway for BTC to fiat and stablecoin rails? This is still quite early. We have been in touch with a few providers that essentially handle exactly these flows from like Web2 merchants into stablecoins and help them accept crypto. Now, what we have to, well, obviously, it's important to say that payments is still primarily a market for stablecoins, without doubt. However, what we do see is that the annual payments volume paid in Bitcoin is $10 to $30 billion. It's not a trillion, but it's still quite big, right? Like there's still a pretty big market out there. But the problem is, well, why is it not growing? And the problem is, like, on one hand, you either have to wait for 10 minutes. So for luxury goods, people use it, but not for like smaller things. Because like, well, waiting for 10 minutes kind of sucks. Even for if you pay for your VPN, which like digital goods is a very big market for payments in Bitcoin, paying for your VPN and you wait for 10 minutes until it's processed, it's still like, well, kind of sucks, right? Like I wanted to use it now. We're in a world where I click and I'm done with my payment and I don't have to wait. And my AI agent in the future, when I tell him to buy a VPN subscription, also doesn't want to wait for 10 minutes, right? We're moving so much faster. 10 to 60 minutes is a long time and it's a time waste. So this is where Bob's fixed rate and instant swaps actually could be a big problem solver. We have been getting some early positive feedback from payment providers, or essentially companies that provide payment rails. And we're actually exploring this angle. So we'll see what happens there. We know that there's a market. We do believe that the Bitcoin swaps market is bigger, but we definitely are the only one of all Bitcoin providers right now that could actually tap into the BTC payments market with this fixed rate and instant swap solution, right? Fixed rates are especially important. Today, all of the Bitcoin swap providers give you a variable rate. There's slippage, and you actually might get less on the other side. Well, but imagine as a merchant, if you're selling a luxury good and suddenly you get like 3% slippage or 1.5% slippage, that's unacceptable, right? Like nobody actually waits. That's not accepted as like, maybe I get less on the payment. Like people don't want that. They want to get exactly the $100 or like $1,000 or $10,000 that you owe them. And this is where our solution offers a unique advantage. So yeah, we'll see what happens. We've been getting some early feedback that this could be a really cool functionality, and hopefully in a month from now we'll have some more updates on this.
Awesome. Those were some really good questions. I just want to remind again, this is why community questions are so important. All of these three questions gave us so much more context into the Bank of Bitcoin vision and each of the core parts of what's going to make the Bank of Bitcoin vision. So yeah, thank you so much, Alexei, again, for taking the time and doing this presentation, giving us up the updates. And to everyone who attended the call, this is obviously recorded. It's going to be on the live stream on X. So if you or any of your friends have missed it out, be sure to send this link to them. If you want to make clips out of it and share with your friends, always make sure to tag us. If you need any help on any of the font side or anything like that, I'm always available on Discord if you need any help around the community. Our moderators, the ticket system is always there. So yeah, we're going to be doing this again in 4 weeks. And in the meantime, be sure to check out the Bank of Bitcoin Vision, check out the Bob Discord, Bob Twitter, and also check out the Bob website. There are some really cool alpha there. If you can find some alpha, feel free to send it to me. And if you want to discuss something, I'm always up for it. So yeah, thank you so much for the call, and we'll see you again.
Thanks for joining. See you next month. Bye-bye.